Okay, let's get to it then. The title race dominates a lot of the back pages in the Sunday papers. The Sun on Sunday, thirsty work is the headline after Arsenal's victory over Brighton at the Emirates. John, it is a win, albeit a cagey one. Are they convincing you more or not so much that they're going to end that 22-year wait?
Cagey or nervy, Dharmesh? I would say nervy, probably. I do like that back page because it sort of kind of focuses on Martin Odegaard there, who opened up the scoring, didn't he, with that wonderful goal. And I do think Odegaard, I think, is a terrific captain, really respected by his peers and teammates, and the sort of leader for Arteta on the pitch. So I think it was good that he gets his form. But Arsenal missing a few players. 2-0, they're cruising, and you think, oh, this is a good response to earlier in the day. Man City, obviously, a really impressive, hard-fought, ground-out win at sort of Nottingham Forest. And Arsenal have to respond. And you think, wow, OK, they're in the zone here. They're going to do it, and they're going to do it comfortably. And at 2-0, they were putting on the pressure for 3-0, and then suddenly they concede, and then all of a sudden you're feeling the nerves and the tension amongst Arsenal fans. I'm sure you could feel it within the ground. That's what it feels like at the moment. And they've gone from a place, I think, in sort of October, November, when they were winning games for fun and playing ever so well and free-flowing football and relaxing, to a place when they really needed one of the best saves you'll see this season, if not the best, from David Raya to tip it over, to maintain that 2-1 scoreline at the end. Because, wow, I mean, the Sunday Express even lead on the save, a ray of hope. And it really was that good. I mean, it was a remarkable save. But it does talk to some nerves in the Arsenal camp, and they are leaders, and they've got a massive game on Tuesday against Aston Villa, and it just feels as if, they're feeling the pressure, I think, much more than Man City, who've been there, done it, got the T-shirt. Aston Villa, who seem to be just enjoying the ride, if you like. And Arsenal, the fan expectation, the expectations in the ground, huge summer spending spree, who's, really sort of kind of taking the limelight out of those new signings. There's so much pressure and expectation on Arteta this year to win a trophy. I think he's done a great job at Arsenal overall, but he is expected to win a major trophy this year. All those things coming together, I think, is playing into that feeling of nerves.
Jason, John mentioned it there, the anxiety, the nervousness, the caginess almost. The Sunday Telegraph, they focus on that.
Arteta of the crowd.
Well, exactly. Emirates are washed with anxiety, but Arsenal maintain top spot. Sam Dean, who was at the Emirates Stadium, says, in recent weeks, the Emirates Stadium has become one of the most anxious arenas in European football. Arsenal are top of the Premier League and the Champions League, into the semi-finals of the Carabao Cup, but it feels like every home match is a source of maximum stress for the club supporters and the players. Mikel Arteta says it's because of a willingness to win, but is there a fine line between willingness and desperation?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think the desperation is winning at the moment. I think it doesn't take an awful lot for that atmosphere to emerge at the Emirates. I think it even goes back to the dog days of Arsene Wenger. That there was that kind of frustration that took over at times. Obviously, Arteta's moved that on quite a lot. There's much more unity around the ground. But I think that unity has become almost, as you say, that desperation to finally get over the line. This is a team that I think, once they do win the league, can probably go on and be a very dominant team for quite some time, notwithstanding what obviously Manchester City and Liverpool and others can do. I think the talent is there, the strength is there. I agree with John. I do like Mikel Arteta, although I do think at times he does need to calm down. On the touchline, I just think he transmits an awful lot of anxiety to the players, and you can see it at the Emirates. He is very, very engaged with what's going on the pitch, but sometimes it's a bit too much. And I think those moments come sometimes too early in games. It's almost like very early on they're almost so stressful and trying to score a goal very quickly and and then after that it's almost like, right, we scored, now we can't concede, we can't lose. And I think they've got, and obviously it's part of being a maturing team and winning something. And as John says, I completely agree, he has to win a major trophy this year. And I say, once they get over the line, if they get over the line, it will make a huge difference to them. It will be transformative to Arsenal once they win a major trophy again. I think it will be transformative. But it's that anxiety and that desperation, as you talk about, that can they do it? And I have to admit, I do slightly fear for them. I fear that it's been so good in some ways up until this point, top of the Champions League table as well. But still haven't won anything yet, so it's a long way to go. And I would worry a lot if I was at Manchester City because they're looking really strong.
You know, maybe Arsenal are having their bad patch right now and they're still winning, because let's be honest, the Wolves game was really bad, but they won it. Last week at Everton, I was at Everton and they weren't convincing, but they won. Yesterday they weren't great, but they won. So we all remember, what was it, 4 or 5 weeks ago, that they beat Tottenham to 6 points clear, and everyone's saying Arsenal running away with it. This is the bad patch, and they're still top of the league. So perhaps this is a positive, the weather in the storm. And I know they've got a tough January coming up. They've got Villa on Tuesday, like you say. If they win that game, then all of a sudden that's a big
It's
moment.
one of two things, isn't it? It's either that, and I agree with Mark, it could well be that, because every team has a wobble, don't they, during the season. You can't just seamlessly go on and win every single game. But at the start of the season, we're talking about Liverpool in a similar way, weren't we? When they were winning all those games, we're thinking, Liverpool just getting over the line, and then it suddenly fell away. So it could go that way as well.
It's a different narrative of Liverpool. It was almost like they've won the title, so they're winning 5 on the bounce. And even though they weren't playing well, it's because Liverpool, that's what they do. With Arsenal, it's like, this is what Arsenal do, they're wobbling. But beat Villa, right, that's a tough call, because Villa are on a great run at the moment. But I mean, I do think that Arsenal have got a tough January, especially at home. They've got Villa this week, then they've got Liverpool, then they've got Man United. So the next 3 home games are really big. But come through January, if you're still unbeaten at home, then all of a sudden, maybe this was the wobble, and maybe they're kind of showing the kind of the bottle right now. So I still think Arsenal are the best squad in the league. And I think we've kind of put a little bit too much emphasis on Man City because it's Pep. If they lose Erling Haaland, then Man City are a different team completely. So I just think if you're an Arsenal fan, just calm down, stay calm, and it might just turn itself out in a positive way.
John, in your paper, Neil McClellan, who's at the Emirates, says the good news for Arsenal fans is that the Gunners held off a late Brighton fight back to return to the top of the table. The bad news is that there's potentially another 5 months of this nerve-jangling anxiety to go this season. Now, Jason mentioned about Mikel Arteta and his demeanour, and maybe that's adding to the anxiety. I don't know what you think, but whenever I've been at his news conferences, you're there every week like I am, I've noticed something different with Mikel Arteta this time, and he seems to be a little bit more relaxed. Maybe at odds to what Jason is saying.
Because before John says that, sorry, I agree with him. Press conferences, I'm talking about on the touchline. That's what I'm talking about. Sorry, go on.
No, I was going to agree with you. I think his general demeanour has changed. And I also think he has improved. I don't know. We're starting from a low base here, in terms of behavioural standards, terms. But I do actually think then that he has, there's no doubt about it, when you are too anxious, when you are too het up, when you are screaming and, being too overzealous on that touchline, it resonates to players. It really does.
But Jurgen Klopp did it at Liverpool.
They embraced it, didn't they?
Exactly.
And Jurgen Klopp was a brilliant manager for Liverpool. But I think with Mikel Arteta,
it works for Arsenal?
I think it makes them nervous. But I must say, I think the point I was going to make, stop boys, basically is that I actually think he's dramatically improved that. Whether you like that or not, I still think he's over anxious on the touchline. But from where he's come from, I think it's one of his big improvements as a manager.
No, I agree with that.
This season, and I tell you where that's borne out in their disciplinary record, which is yellow cards is sort of kind of a little bit mid-table, but they haven't had a sending off. Well, last season, injuries and sendings off, you could argue, completely undermined their title challenge. Well, they haven't had one this season. I think that's testament to Arteta's improvement, and I do actually think that's perhaps a little bit underestimated and undervalued. I still think he could calm down a bit, but if he calms down, do you lose Arteta's passion, enthusiasm and the drive and the coach that he is? Honestly, over the course of the piece, basically, over the 6 years, he's done a remarkable job. But I do think ultimately he will, and he knows this, he'll be judged on what he wins and judged on what he, achieves as a manager, and that's got to be trophies. But I do think Mark's right. They're basically top of the Premier League, top of the Champions League. But the nerves. If last season it was injuries, we've got a bit of injuries this season. If this season they don't win it, I think it'll be down to nerves and tension.
Mark, just picking up on what you said, maybe this is Arsenal's sticky patch. Riyadh Al-Samurai in the Mail on Sunday says if Arsenal are to finally hold their nerve in the title race, then Mikel Arteta ought to spend the entirety of next summer writing notes of thanks to those who helped them through these festive weeks. Own goals are the gifts that keep on giving. If you look at their last 4 games in all competitions, the 2-1 victory against Wolves, 2 own goals. It was a penalty that separated them from Everton. There was an own goal, albeit in the Carabao Cup, against Crystal Palace. And the decisive goal, what ended up being the decisive goal against Brighton, was an own goal as well. What should we read into that, if anything?
Well, I think what we read into that is the fact that they're still getting results. You know, every team has most teams in normal title-winning seasons have a wobble. They have a difficult period. And I think this is Arsenal's now. And I think, had it gone the other way, had they lost those games or drawn those games, then we could say that the nerves have been afray. But I just think it's easy with Arsenal because I think we've all been to the Emirates and it can be an edgy stadium. The fans, they're very quick to, not turn, but they're very quick to get anxious. So it's an easy narrative to play into it that Arsenal fans are nervous, it's going to cost them the title. I don't know. I just think that it shows a character that they've got that they can get over the line of these games. And you talk about Arteta's, I won't say antics on the touchline, but I think what it is with Arteta, I think he knows that he still hasn't got a player on the pitch who can do that for him. So, you know, you go back to the classic captains, you know, like the Roy Keanes at Man United, even, you know, Van Dijk at Liverpool. The manager can stand back and know that he's got a guy on the pitch who can do all that kind of ranting and raving and organise on the pitch. I still think Arsenal are quite naive sometimes on the pitch, quite young. I mean, they're not the youngest team, but they have a bit of inexperience. They haven't got like a Kevin De Bruyne that Man City had that could just guide them through games. I think that's Declan Rice's potential role. Maybe Martin Odegaard as captain, but they're still not quite there yet. So I think Arteta has to kind of almost micromanage from the touchline because he needs someone on the pitch to do it for him. So I think everyone at Arsenal needs to calm down a bit.
John,
it's still going well.
John, we're talking about these own goals, and I guess it's shining a light on Arsenal's attacking players, and in particular, the man we've spoken about throughout this season in Victor Gyökeres. Not just his performance yesterday, but just generally, when everybody is fit, because you know Kai Havertz is coming back, Gabriel Jesus has just returned, Mikel Merino's played a role up front as well. When everybody is fit, is he the guy for you that's going to spearhead Arsenal's title challenge for the rest of the season?
No, I don't think he can do it. I honestly, I worry about him a bit, and I think that he, in fairness to him, £64 million, and basically, you know, there's a lot of Arsenal fans saying, well, he does a great job for the team and he works hard. My word, you expect a bit more from that. If you really go all in, as Arsenal did for a striker, you expect goals too, and he's just not scoring enough. He's not contributing enough to the game. Look at his few number of touches that, again, he was barely involved yesterday, and he's really struggling, I think. In fairness to him, before he got injured at Burnley, and at that point I thought, here we go, he's scoring, and he scored at Burnley, and he was leading the charge, he was leading the press, and we think, okay, this is what it's going to be about. He was a kind of a real sort of kind of bull in the china shop, really working hard and sort of leading the press, and basically also scoring and then contributing to the team. And since he's come back from Burnley, bearing in mind he didn't have a pre-season, in fairness to him, there's a few sort of kind of strikers obviously struggling from that aspect this season. But I worry about him. And I think Arteta's kind of caught in this place where he's putting him in because he could see that he was realising his potential, and he's sticking with him to kind of get him that opportunity to get back to where he was and where he was threatening to be. But I actually think at the same time it's a mistake, because Gabriel Jesus comes on, looks much better, he looks sharp, he looks quick, he looks, you know, very skillful, his touch. And I think Kai Havertz will still be, when fit again, will be Arteta's first choice number 9. I really do. I don't think it's worked for Gyökeres yet. And I think of all the big signings and the statement signings in the summer, that's the one under the microscope. It's always going to be like that with the centre forward. Has he got potential to turn it around? I think so. But I look at him at times and he just looks sluggish and slow. I don't think he is. But when you're struggling like that form-wise, my word, you look at it on the pitch.
Jason, doesn't seem to be the same issues if you're Manchester City, because the goals now, whereas before we were talking about an over-reliance on Erling Haaland, they are finding 3 other players who are really contributing in Tierney Reinders. As the Observer says, Reinders arrives late to deliver Christmas gifts to Jubilant City, and of course Phil Foden, but most of all the guy who's coming through now, Ryan Gyökeres, who seems to be a bargain buy for them now. They haven't looked entirely convincing either, but unnoticed almost, is 8 wins in all competitions in a row. Of all the teams that Arsenal didn't want to be looking over their shoulder at, it's them, isn't it?
I think it is. The only thing I'd say about City, is I think defensively they're still quite vulnerable. I think they do give up goals, as we saw yesterday. There is always that vulnerability. I saw a lot of that in the Club World Cup. They do give up chances. That is, I mean, if you compare their defence to Arsenal's first choice defence, there is no comparison. Arsenal are far better defensively in terms of their organisation, in terms of obviously their resilience. I think going forward, though, Manchester City suddenly are looking, as you say, much more of a unit. It's not just about Haaland. You've also got Doku and potentially got Semenyo as well. They're going to be scoring goals from everywhere. So I think that's going to be their strength in the second half of the season. We'll be going forward, blitzing teams, outscoring teams. They've already scored quite a few more goals than Arsenal already. The goal difference is better. So I think that will be their real strength, and that could be quite exciting for us, because I don't think they've got the same level of control in games we've seen before, where they almost it's like relentlessness to them of obviously just beating teams, getting in front, and there's no chance of anyone coming back at them. I think there is a vulnerability there which makes it, as I say, more exciting. We see both those teams have got vulnerabilities, really. I mean, there's nobody you're looking at and thinking they're just going to win it. I mean, they can't. 2 or 3 years ago, you're thinking like Liverpool or Man City, they're just going to pull away. These two will pull away with Villa, I think, but there are vulnerabilities there that make them both catchable, I think.
I think City just look absolutely wonderful at the moment to play. It was a hard game for them at Forest yesterday.
But they do give up chances.
They do, absolutely, but they gave up the best chance of the first half, didn't they, with the cross, which Gibbs was slightly put off from, and basically might have scored and given them the lead, and then obviously they're pegged back, but they come good and they rise again. I mean, you say almost unnoticed. Not from my perspective. I just think they've looked ominously good. And basically, they're consistent again. Yes, they've got some defensive frailty, particularly on corners. I mean, Donnarumma may be considered by some as the best keeper in the world, but he doesn't particularly like high physical balls into the box, basically. And that, I think, is their Achilles heel. But my word, as an attacking force, they are an absolute joy to watch. And they are purring. Arsenal did that. Arsenal were like that in October, November, and they've hit their dip, and I just feel as if at the moment teams will go through those highs and lows. City are definitely going with Gyökeres. I have to say, what a play he looks. Basically he's loving his football, and City look great.
Mark, just finally on this, John Percy was at the City ground. He says the Guardiola juggernaut is continuing to gather momentum. 8th victory from 9 Premier League matches, and winning without performing brilliantly is a recurring theme for potential champions. The narrative has always been City are dangerous because they've been there, they've got the know-how. Is that a thing? Is that experience that important, or do we often overestimate what that can do?
It's definitely a thing, because of all the things that we talk about Arsenal, we're not talking about Man City, because we know that they've overcome those hurdles. The nerve, they've done it. The manager, he's done it. The players, they've done it. Even the fans at home, they know how games go. They know how kind of title races are played out. So everything that Arsenal are still having to answer the questions about, City have done that. So that's why it matters. And the City players also know that there will be games where you have to hold your nerve, you have to win it late. And again, the Arsenal players are still having that learning process. So yeah, experience does matter. We've seen it over the years with United, with Chelsea.
It's the manager, isn't it?
And the manager as well.
Ferguson won titles by force of personality.
I mean, there must be 3 or 4 titles that Fergie won in the latter years that United weren't the best team in the league, but they just got results. And City might be the same this season. They might not be the best team or squad in the league, but because they know how to get results and they know how to hold their nerve, then that might count. So experience matters massively in a title race.
Very quickly, in 1 or 2 words, who wins the league?
Arsenal.
Manchester City.
City.
Oh, I thought you were going to say 2, but that's good. Brilliant. So, 2-1 for City. Let's see if our panel...
I'm not quite sure there's anything Declan Rice can't do. Look, Jay, with Manchester City playing earlier on, and I kind of want to bring you back to a few years ago when Arsenal were chasing Manchester City, and there was this, they were going head to head, and all the talk was about who was playing first on the weekend and the pressure that they could put on, and Manchester City showed their experience then. How important was it to see Arsenal respond today after what Manchester City did at lunchtime?
I mean, I think the fact that they've been in them situations before now, I feel like Arsenal players are coping with it better. Obviously, they still need to go and win a title, being under pressure from another team. But all they can do, and what they did today, is work hard, create chances, score goals, and keep on plugging away. It's a really difficult time right now because of all the games. Again, more injuries. Calafiori's picked up an injury injury. Timber's picked up an injury. But luckily, Gabriel has come back in. Skelly played really well today. So it's really tough. It's really demanding. But that's what you got the strong squad for.
So you talk about demanding. The fans are probably going to be watching Arsenal, certainly in the last few games in particular, and seeing almost a nervous energy come in, especially when they concede a goal, panic stations, they sit back deep. Are they getting nervous already? Bear in mind it's still only December.
I don't think nervous creeps into it. I feel like more, anxious sometimes.
That's a posh word to say, nervous, right?
I want to say anxious because I feel like sometimes you see Arsenal playing really well. And like you said, teams will just drop in now. Be difficult to beat, be compact, be aggressive. And it's not always easy to break down, 8-9 players behind the ball. But then when they do get the goal, that's when the game opens up again. But sometimes it is very hard. But again, like I've said, I feel like Arsenal have the tools now to bring players on that can make a difference, create chances, score goals. And that's a great thing to have from Arteta's point of view.
Well, look, the most important thing, they're top of the league. That's all Arteta will care about tonight, certainly. I wonder if that's all our first fan of the evening show thinks about that. Nick Karamalis, great to see you again, mate. I hope you've had a great Christmas. Hope you've put on loads of weight like Jay says he has as well. Look, Nick, what's your initial response? Tricky match against Brighton, but considering Manchester City put the pressure on early, you pleased just to get over the line?
Yeah, 100%. You've got to be pleased. I mean, these are not going to give me a heart attack, though. We don't seem to win comfortably anymore. At this stage of every season, even at the Emirates, we were cruising, and we're always cruising in the first half, and it just looks like, one goal up, we should be way ahead, and then we get sucker punched every single time at the Emirates. One shot against us, and it goes in, and all of a sudden they got their tails up, and we're just kind of dropping further and further and back. But listen, the last 3 games has been similar to that, where we've just scraped over the line. But we've got 9 points out of 9, so you've got to be happy with that. I think previous seasons we probably end up drawing at least 1 or 2 of those. So maybe we've turned the corner in that respect. And another positive I think from today was that we created chances, which we don't always do. So we did create the chances. As long as we keep creating, eventually we're going to start scoring some more goals, but we do need to kill some teams off earlier because it's not good for my heart.
Nick, we spoke about Odegaard in the past, and I think today especially was, from my point of view, what I want to see from Odegaard. I want him picking up the ball on the edge of the box, and his first thoughts is, can I get a shot off? And that's what he done today. Yeah. In the past weeks, he ain't scored a goal since May, and I know he's been injured, but nevertheless, a player of his quality should be scoring more goals. When he received the ball today, he didn't hesitate at all. He was like, I'm shooting, and that's what he done. In his comments afterwards, he said he's been working on his shooting, so he's obviously aware that I've been talking about him.
He's been watching the show. We're going to hear from Martin Odegaard later on in the show, and we'll get to that a little bit, Nick. I wanted to ask you about Victor Gyökeres, and actually off camera Jay asked me this great question. He said, look, if Arsenal had a must-win game, it's a great question. Arsenal had a must-win game. They had a fit and firing Kai Havertz, Gabriel Jesus, Victor Gyökeres and Mikel Merino. Who are you going with? Who's your number 1 striker?
I think last would be Gyökeres at the moment. I really don't think he's that great. Listen, I know it takes time. You've done a
U-turn then?
No. I think you're confusing me.
I called him
championship level, Jay.
You was telling me, you telling me he occupies defenders, he works hard, he does all this.
No. Jay, you're confusing me with someone else. Do you remember I said it was you. Championship? I said it was championship level, and you went, oh, that's a bit harsh.
But when I spoke about him before, I was saying, listen, there's no doubt about it. He can score goals, and he did it in Championship, and then he did in Portugal. But then, like today's game, for example, he had a great chance where the ball's played over the top. It's bounced lovely for him. All he's got to do is just caress that, over the keeper. The keeper's nowhere near. The ball could have bounced twice. The keeper still wouldn't have got there. But he's not showing the clinical mentality you would expect from a top striker. That's why when we have these conversations about who do you play up front for Arsenal, now I've seen Gabby come back. Jesus looks unbelievable. He can hold the ball. His link-up play is really good because we're not used to seeing it because Gyökeres has been playing there. My thing is this. How can Arsenal get the best out of Gyökeres and Gyökeres get the best out of the players that are playing in the team at the same time?
Nick, what's your response to that?
Here's my worry. Here's my worry about Gyökeres. Saka had the ball quite a few times down the right. Saka played really well, especially in that first half.
Putting loads of crosses in
and
as well.
But the thing is, Gyökeres is hiding behind defenders. It's like he's not confident at the moment, but he's not making the right runs, near post runs. And that's what worries me. Another thing that worries me, he doesn't hold the ball up. I mean, Jesus came on, and within 10 minutes, he'd done more than Gyökeres the whole
100%.
game. And that's not the first time, by the way.
No, I agree with you, because I always said, listen, my whole thing about it is, obviously I was a forward. I'm saying, if you're not scoring goals or assisting goals, you need to do something else.
Do you think he was at the start of the season? Because watching him at the start, he seemed to have a lot more energy.
James, I think he's put massive pressure on himself. Like, first of all, taking a number 14 shirt, you've put massive pressure on yourself by, that's the great one. That's the best Premier League striker of all time. You do not take that shirt unless you think you're that guy. But I just look at his overall output in the Arsenal shirt so far. He's not doing enough, and it doesn't seem like he wants to change his game or improve his game to get the best out of himself, but to get the best out of his teammates.
I think this is going to be a question for many. Look, Nick, let's talk about Aston Villa. They're in great form right now. We'll actually show you guys them going behind. Actually, Chelsea have taken the lead in that game this evening at Stamford Bridge. But Aston Villa, after what happened at Villa Park, the last minute Emi Buendia goal, how big do you see that game, and what do you want to see from Arsenal that we perhaps haven't seen from them over the last few games, despite winning the games?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's a massive game for us. Massive game, especially psychologically. We need to kind of beat this team, especially at home now. I want to see a bit more energy. I think, we're playing after 3 days, but so are they. They're playing later than us. I think we've got a bigger squad than them. So I don't think there's any excuses. I think hopefully Arteta, obviously Eze and Madueke didn't come on. I think he'll probably use them against them as well. So a bit more energy. Still creating chances as we did. Let's finish some chances. I don't really want to see Gyökeres up front. I'll be honest with you. At the moment, I don't think we can afford to be carrying him. But I think we can beat them, and I think we should.
Nick, finally, Arsenal still winning the league?
Yeah, of course. Cool.
Leandro Trossard proved to be the perfect antidote to Arsenal's attacking frustrations, following Mikel Arteta's candid remarks about Victor Gyökeres. Gyökeres may have struggled to truly impress since his summer arrival at Arsenal, but over the weekend, there was finally a glimpse of what he is capable of. More importantly, Trossard showed exactly why he could be the key to unlocking the Swedish striker's full potential during Arsenal's hard-fought 2-1 victory over Wolves at the Emirates Stadium. The 31-year-old winger injected fresh energy into Mikel Arteta's side on Saturday night and helped breathe new life into the Gunners' attack. Shortly after replacing Gabriel Martinelli in the second half, Arsenal found the breakthrough. While Trossard did not directly contribute to either the opening goal or the dramatic stoppage time winner, his influence on the game was undeniable. Trossard took control of proceedings, dictating the tempo and pulling the strings down the left flank. Time and again, he dismantled Wolves' compact defensive setup, releasing Miles Lewis-Skelly into space, picking out Declan Rice on the edge of the box, and crucially, feeding Gyökeres with intelligent, well-timed passes. Operating as a creative hub, the Belgian showcased his playmaking qualities, delivering sharp, purposeful distribution. His introduction completely shifted the momentum of the match, and for the first time in weeks, Arsenal's $64 million striker briefly looked like a genuine threat. Before Trossard's arrival, Gyökeres endured a frustrating and ineffective outing in attack. In fact, the Belgian was the only player to carve out a clear-cut opportunity for the 27-year-old forward, slipping a simple yet incisive ball in behind the Wolves' backline. Gyökeres controlled the pass, beat his defender, and aimed for the far post. Wolves goalkeeper Sam Johnstone was beaten, but the Swedish striker saw his effort agonizingly drift just wide. If Arteta truly wants to get the best out of Gyökeres, then granting Trossard a more prominent role in the starting 11th could be the solution. Speaking to TNT Sports after the win, the Arsenal manager openly addressed the challenges facing his marquee signing. "It's a collaboration between the two," Arteta explained. "He was in some really good positions, but the ball didn't arrive quickly enough, accurately enough, or with the precision a number 9 needs to score." But his commitment and intention were there, and we have to keep pushing. Arteta was equally vocal in defending Gyökeres prior to the match, urging patience with the striker's adaptation to English football. "There was huge expectation because we were signing a proven goal scorer, probably with the best statistics in Europe," Arteta said. "But he's coming into a different league, the most demanding league in the world. What happens if he doesn't score in 5 or 6 games? That was the only question I asked him. How are you going to react if you don't score in 5 or 6 matches? Can you handle that? And what about the next 100 games? That's what people need to see. The sample size is still very small, so leave him alone. Let him do what he does best. Support him, and I'm convinced things will come good." That message from Arteta resonated beyond the Emirates. In the days following the Wolves' victory, the debate around Gyökeres intensified among pundits, supporters, and former players. While some questioned whether Arsenal's record signing is truly suited to the Premier League's pace and physicality, others pointed to the structural issues around him rather than the striker himself. Much of the post-match analysis focused on Arsenal's chance creation and balance in the final third. The Wolves game highlighted a recurring theme this season. Gyökeres often makes the right movements, but the service into dangerous areas has been inconsistent. When Trossard entered the match, that problem briefly disappeared. Arsenal suddenly looked more fluid, more unpredictable, and far better equipped to supply a traditional number 9. Former players speaking on television and radio were quick to note the contrast. With Trossard drifting inside and linking play, Arsenal's attacking shape became more compact, allowing Gyökeres to stay higher up the pitch and occupy central defenders. That, in turn, created space for midfield runners like Rice and Ødegaard to arrive late in the box. It was a glimpse of an attacking formula that Arsenal have rarely sustained this season. The reaction from supporters has been equally divided. While frustration with Gyökeres' goal return remains, there is growing appreciation for his work rate, physical presence, and willingness to press from the front. Many fans now see Trossard as the missing connector, the player who can translate Gyökeres' movement into genuine scoring opportunities. Internally, Arteta faces an important decision. Persisting with a front line that isolates Gyökeres risks damaging the striker's confidence, especially with tougher fixtures on the horizon. At the same time, promoting Trossard to a regular starting role could mean reshuffling wide positions and reducing Martinelli's minutes, a bold call that would not come without consequences. Yet football at the highest level often comes down to chemistry rather than reputation. The Wolves match suggested that Arsenal's most expensive signing may not need drastic changes to his own game, but rather the right supporting cast around him. If Arteta embraces that idea, Gyökeres' slow start could soon be remembered as nothing more than a difficult adjustment period. For now, the pressure remains. Goals will ultimately define Gyökeres' Arsenal career, and patience in North London is never unlimited. But with Trossard offering clarity, creativity, and calm in possession, Arsenal may finally have found the key to unlocking their striker and turning promise into consistent production.